Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get up to $100 cash back on that first deposit. And we're presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. I want to give a shout out to start. My men's league team, the Lizards, we're moving on to the championship, baby. Second straight season, we're moving on to the championship. I missed the championship in the spring due to the Bruins and the Leafs. We lost that game, so hoping to reverse course in this championship next week. So shout out the Lizards in Wellesley. And yeah, so I'm doing great. I'm tired, but doing great. Doing great. You're off to Patriots. You've been doing a bunch of Patriots recently, right?
Yes. Evan, that team's going to be really bad this year.
Not much else needs to be said.
Which
they are going to stink.
Which after Judon was traded, was that Wednesday night? I tweeted like it's going to be a long fall in Foxborough. And people were like, well, they're going to suck anyway. They're going to win like fucking 2 games. That O-line is so goddamn bad. You guys are I was talking to a few people today. I think bad football, like not like, you come up just short in some of these games, like just broken offensive football might be the thing in sports that I dislike the most. Like maybe really bad like pitching, really bad bullpen will drive you crazy, but like broken
at least
offense,
there's runs. At least if the game is like 11-7, it's like there's action. I would say for baseball, it's more like just a lot of pop outs and ground outs, and it's like 0-0 in the 8th with like 2 hits apiece. I would put that on par with like shitty offense in football.
I was over at the joint practices with the Eagles, and I know there was a lot said from a lot of people who know more about football than myself about how bad it looked. Holy shit. Get ready, guys. Better change, because if not, holy shit.
Thankfully, we're all on the Bruins side, so we, you listeners don't have to put yourself through the Patriots' misery every week, and the Bruins will actually be good. I mean, did you see that stat? I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. You might have been on your honeymoon. I don't know what the internet was like in Tanzania, but they had a stat that was like highest winning percentage, I think, since 2020 per city, and Boston was number 1. And think about how bad the Red Sox have been.
Just the Celtics and Bruins just carrying the way.
That's it. They've carried the city. Like the Patriots have sucked since 2020. The Red Sox have had a year that was good, but a bunch of other bad years. And it was Celtics and Bruins, and that's going to be this offseason. Now the Red Sox, thankfully, are like okay. I mean, they will rip your heart out, but but still, the Bruins and the Celtics will carry this offseason. And thankfully for us, Connor, the Bruins should be good. If they're bad, we're going to have a big problem.
Yes.
We're going to have a very big problem if the Bruins are bad, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So why don't we talk about some veterans? We've talked a lot about prospects. I know you have a story coming. You talked to Johnny Beecher and Mason Lowry Thursday. And so I know you'll have a story coming on that. Probably, interesting stuff. So I encourage everyone to go check that out at boston.com. But the veterans, the vets, we have not discussed the vets in a while. And one person that, I kind of mentioned back, I think we were doing like predictions. I mentioned Brad Marchand as someone I saw, continuing to trend down. Not saying he's going to be terrible. He's going to be like benched by like November. It's freaking crazy, man. Like he's going to be out of it. But honestly, like I do think that there, but I also think it depends who he plays with. If he's up with that first line with Lindholm and Pastrnak, I think those numbers are still, top line numbers. I think if he's down with Coyle, though, it's a different story. But what are your expectations for Brad Marchand?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just how he continues to develop and evolve because, as you said, maybe look at his numbers last year and I think it was like 67 points, second on the team in scoring, played in all 82 games. And again, as you said, where he kind of fits in the lineup maybe will dictate what his baseline production is because you can make the case, as you said, if he's with, Lindholm and Pastrnak, he could be a guy that ends up being a point per game guy if he's just stable to that line. But if he's with, Coyle and insert player here, right? Geeky, Frederick, Lysell. And that's kind of more of a, especially if it's one of those first two guys, if it's more of a like two-way shutdown role. If Marchand, who even maybe his scoring has dipped a little bit, still has that really strong two-way defensive game, and he complements Coyle well, and they can kind of be a shutdown guy, and Marchand gives you 60 points, I think you take that for what his role is. Like, again, when you look at, where he is at this stage of his career, still a very, very good player. A few years removed from double hip surgery, which, again, he's mentioned has prolonged his career, but still there's a toll to be paid with going through those kinds of procedures. I just think you look at where he is, you have to set the right expectations where I don't know if he's going to have a 40-goal year, a 90-point season, an 80, 85-point season or anything like that. But for what the Bruins need from him at this stage of his career, to be a guy that can play a strong two-way game, can inject some energy, which is what he's done throughout his career, bring that passion on the ice. I don't think that's really going to change. So, and I think you look at the way the Bruins are right now. Listen, would they love to have 30-year-old Marchand, the guy that had a 100-point season? Of course they would. But when you look at kind of the supporting cast and the guys around him, they do have guys that can kind of shoulder some of that scoring burden, even if Marchand's maybe aging out of that 35 goal kind of threshold he used to be in. But still a guy that I think NHL ranked him as a top 20 wing in the league still. I think when you look at especially his defensive game, he still brings so much to the ice, even if maybe his stats are going to slip a little bit. But I'm not expecting like he's going to be hitting a wall and he's got 44 points or something like that. Or any, I don't think we're hitting that yet. And that'd be very shocking if that did happen this upcoming year.
Yeah, I don't think that's on the table at all. I'm with you. I think if he's up with that top line, I think you can expect 70 plus points. Like, I think if he's, because the power play is going to be better. We said all the things we said about Elias Lindholm, I think can be applied to Marchand, right? The power play is going to be better. So you're going to have more points there. If he's on that top line, they are going to be better. I think the real question is if he's down with Coyle and Lysell or Geeky or Frederick, that's where you sort of wonder, like, okay, is it 65 points? Is it 60? Like, what is the realistic goal there? And I still think that's fine production from the second line. He's 36 years old. Like, I think that's still really good. You take that. I think those are fair expectations. Now, if he's up on that top line and he's not producing, then you have an issue, right? Like, or if he's 44 points on the second line, then you also have an issue. But I do think
it's not great.
That's not great. I do think somewhere in that sweet spot, though, of 60 to 75 points, depending on where he's playing in the lineup. And I also just think his ability to create chances for himself, his ability protect pucks along the wall, like all those things. I still think that's still all there. The fire, the compete, that stuff, that's all there. So I have him somewhere around there. I just think it depends again, like who is he playing with. And we won't really know until training camp. I think everyone kind of assumed that Zacha would go up with Lindholm and Pastrnak, and I assume we will definitely see that. But I also think they might want to go with a super line. They might want to go with, hey, we're gonna optimize Brad Marchand to his fullest capabilities, and we're gonna keep Coyle on the and this is another thing, right? Like, and we talked about this with prospects. Like, is there a world in which, like, let's say Georgi Merkulov has a phenomenal training camp, right? Like, let's say he just wows everybody. And it's like, all right, we can't put him back in Providence. We can't put him in the bottom six. Maybe you stick him as the left wing on the second line with Coyle. And again, I'm speaking in hypotheticals here. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it could. Like, again, Merkulov, Coyle, Lysell, Merkulov, Coyle, Geeky. And again, it's hard to imagine, Montgomery thrusting a guy like Merkulov straight into the top six, but you never know. Like, that could be a training camp. I think that is a training camp storyline to watch. So I think we're all operating under the assumption that Pavel Zacha is going to be on the wing, and I think he probably will be. But I think we should also consider some scenarios in which maybe he's down the middle, and Coyle, maybe he's either on the wing or he's the third line center. You have a lot of third line centers, but I think we have to consider all our options here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you look at just the luxury the Bruins have with a guy like David Pastrnak, who I think has proven now he can drive play and play with pretty much anyone. And it makes a lot of sense, right, that you're going to put Elias Lindholm with him. This is a guy in Lindholm who again, I think it's easy to chart out his floor, but the Bruins are expecting more from him. Are they expecting the 40-goal Lindholm from, that 1 year in Calgary? Probably not. But listen, the rationale's there. Stick in with Pastrnak, and maybe we have a 70-point two-way potential Selke candidate there. And it goes to whoever's on that left wing, right? Like, as you said, could be the case where it is Marchand and you bump up his numbers, but you can also look at it with with Marchand, where I think he's got such an easy floor to kind of map out, where the Bruins can be like, all right, we'll take Marchand at, a 60-point Marchand playing good two-way game with Coyle and whoever else. Who do we need to put in that, top line spot at left wing and get them rolling? Could easily make the case for it being a guy like Zacha, who, again, they put in spots where they want him to succeed. Put him with a guy like Pastrnak and Lindholm, having more of a simplified shot-first mentality, which they've been working on him for a while now. And if it ends up being a case where a guy like Zacha, who they think has another gear to reach, and you can get him to be a consistent 65-point guy, like, maybe that's kind of the rationale there. I think it all comes down to who they want to put in that spot to really get more out of their game. And listen, it would be good for Marchand's stats as he's building that Hall of Fame resume if he has an 80-point season with those guys, but maybe his value is best on the second line and kind of more of a jack of all trades, steady role, and you give that kind of coveted spot to someone else who could use more of that offensive punch. So it's kind of luxury having a guy like Marchand where he can kind of be whatever you want him to be on this team. But even if he's not what he was a few years ago, still a very, very good player that impacts the game in a lot of different ways.
He is. And I don't, when I say, he's going to continue to trend down, I don't mean, as we said, like 44 points. Like it's going to be somewhere in that 60-point range, I think.
Yes.
But again, depends
people age and their skills do decline. Like it is inevitable.
It'll happen to us at some point. Not anytime soon, but at some point down the road, maybe it might happen. We might lose our fastball. Quick word from our friends.
Team USA's run in Paris has come to an end, but rejoice, sports fans, because football season is about to begin. And there's so many ways for you to get in the action and win up to 100 times your cash on PrizePicks, as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level on the court, baseball diamond, gridiron, and much more. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. With PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this fall. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in less than a minute. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. And unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Preseason football is underway, but you can pick more or less on 2024 season stats already on PrizePicks. Will Patrick Mahomes throw for more or less than 4,300 yards? Will CJ Stroud's sophomore season result in more or less 4,150 yards? Enter your season picks before week 1 kicks off. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks. This football season, I'm picking Tyreek Hill for more than 1,376 yards and Saquon Barkley for more than 1,050 rushing yards. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, run your game. Now, let's get back to the show.
So I hope people can't hear my air conditioning. I don't think you can, right?
No,
you can't hear it. I went right before this. I made a brilliant move, went for a run and then showered. So I'm sitting here just like dripping sweat, just as it all comes out. So I was like, I need to turn my AC on. I don't care if people can hear it. Like I need the AC.
Even if it was, listen, no, there's no need. You should be under duress while podcasting, Evan. So
like, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's crazy, man. Like, someone else, another veteran, Hampus Lindholm. Hampus Lindholm caught a lot of crap throughout last year in the playoffs as well. Had that big goal in Game 7 against the Leafs, which sort of, changed the narrative a bit on him. I still think when the playoffs were over, we were all kind of like, yeah, that was cool, but could have used a little bit more of that or that big kind of play on D. That 2022-23 season, though, for him was incredible. I mean, he stepped in for Charlie McAvoy, who was hurt early, and he was a terrific #1 defenseman. Can he get back to being that guy?
I don't know if he's going to get back to being that kind of player, just because, I mean, the point production was obviously boosted by the power play reps. Again, you can make the argument that like a left shot guy like Lindholm is better in that power play role. I feel like eventually down the road, like this season, if we get to January and February and they want to put a left shot guy in there, it's probably Lorais who gets those reps. But
Yeah.
I think for Lindholm, it all comes down to, I think the Bruins are just maybe it's managing a little bit more of his deployment. And I think he's really good with Carlo, and I imagine that's going to be the second pairing. But I also view Lindholm as a guy that, again, I think when he's at his best, he's probably not a 50-point guy, but he can kind of be that jack of all trades player that can inject a little offense, can play a steady defensive game while giving you 20 minutes a night. Not a lot of guys can do that, so he has a lot of value there, but he also shouldn't be the guy that's getting 25% ozone reps. And maybe,
Agreed.
the fact that, and again, I think a guy like Carlo can do that, and that's why he brings so much value. But even if you're lightening that workload a little bit and it's, 38%, and you're giving a few more of those D-zone reps to a Zadorov McAvoy line and balancing it out, I think even if maybe, you're looking at, freeing up McAvoy a little bit more, I think, evening out those D-zone reps should help Lindholm. Again, is he going to be what he was 2 years ago and a Norris finalist, or a guy that, what was he, top 4 or 5? I think he was Norris voting.
Yeah.
A few years ago. And again, I thought he deserved it. He was unreal that year. But I think if you're able to lighten a little bit of those really, really taxing reps, disperse it a little bit more, where you give more to Zadorov, or you give more to, Andrew Peak and that pairing. I think balancing that and just making it a little bit easier for Lindholm should get more out of him in terms of what he can provide. As you said, that game 7 where he's scores that goal, he sets up Pasternak's play. He can do a lot when he's really, locked in and impacting the game that way. And I think just maybe tweaking those D-zone reps maybe is what you need to do to get more out of him. And so I think it's all about setting the proper expectations. I don't know if you should expect him to be the guy he was 2 years ago, but I think, you can skewer or maybe change some of the deployment a little bit to make life a little bit easier for him and get more returns from how he can, play at his best moving forward.
Yeah, he came in 4th that year. I thought it was like 5 or 6. He was 4th.
Yeah.
That was Erik Karlsson
unreal.
with 101 points as number 1, minus 26.
That shitty San Jose team.
Yeah, they're going to be shitty again. Remember that whole debate at the end of that year? Karlsson versus Fox. Fox had 72 points, came in 2nd. And then Kale McCarr came in 3rd. And then Hampus Lindholm actually got 12 first-place votes. Mm-hmm. That's pretty wild. 12 first-place votes for Hampus Lindholm.
I voted him first.
Did you really?
I did. Yeah.
Did we not discuss that?
Yeah, I thought we did. For what he had, like 50-ish points for, I think, a guy who still, when you look further on, I think still had like 30% ozone deployment. Bruins had a drastic swing in terms of outscoring teams, high danger chances. Again, you're in a losing battle when you have like a guy like Karlsson and those numbers. And again, credit to him for how good he was on that really shitty San Jose team to have 100 points. But I think it's very rare where, you can have a guy like McCarr, who's, again, such a generational talent, and defensively, the numbers are still very solid. To have a guy who's, 50, 60 points plus a top 2 or 3 percentile of limiting high danger chances, goals against, you don't see that all that often. So I thought I had a compelling case, but alas.
Well, you did. And the other part, I know that we don't usually dive into plus minuses. He was a plus 49 that year.
Yeah.
It's insane. That is insane. Plus 49. Yeah, I'd go back to, I don't think you need him to be what he was in 22-23. You need to find that happy medium. You need to find, because realistically, I mean, if he can give you that, awesome. You take that every time. I mean, geez. But you don't, I mean, you have Zadorov now. You have Lorai who's emerging. Like, I don't think you need him to be that number 1 guy. What you need is 35 points, responsible defensively, like good on his retrievals. That's what you need. And whether that's with Carlo, whether that's with McAvoy, that's what you need. I think that's the sweet spot. expecting that. I think the more we see Lindholm, I think that year may have been an outlier in terms of opportunity, in terms of different things. But I don't think he's far away from it. I mean, I know his stock was so low in those playoffs. I remember doing those post-game shows with Carl Corzini, and we were like, first of all, I think he has like a no move or a no trade.
Yeah.
And then we were like, because Carl was like, who would take him even if he waived it? And I was like, I don't know. But like, I mean, he's a good top 4 defenseman. Like, you'd think someone would want that. And I do think I think he can be very valuable. So I think he's someone that can kind of get back to that sweet spot, which is between 22, 23, 24, or 22, 23 and 23, 24 for 24, 25. Speaking of 24, 25, if you want to go to the game, you want to get tickets, go check out our friends at GameTime.
The Celtics are champs, the Bruins are hibernating, and the Patriots preseason is in full swing. The final weeks of the summer are upon us, but there's still plenty of time to catch a game at Fenway Park. And if you're a Red Sox fan and want to make your way over to the ballpark, you got to go with GameTime tickets. There's nothing better than posting up with your buddies at Fenway, grabbing a beer, Fenway Frank, maybe a pretzel if you're feeling dangerous, taking in the sights and sounds of the game over the final weeks of the summer. And with Boston pushing for a playoff spot, now is the time to jump in on the bandwagon, and GameTime tickets will get you the best seats at the best prices to get you in the park. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace that makes getting MLB tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Want to snag last-minute tickets to a concert? GameTime Tickets has you covered. Maybe a matinee game at Fenway, or perhaps an early ticket to Gillette in September. There's no shortage of options when using the GameTime app. GameTime Tickets app makes it easy to sort through which specific game, concert, or other event you want to attend, and shows you the best spots available to take in the action. And with flash deals and zone deals available, you can make it to some of the most in-demand games at the last second. With these last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying seats at sporting events, concerts, comedy, theater shows, and more. Some of my favorite features of the app include seat views, where you can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee, or else GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. GameTime Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour return guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Hit the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, let's get back to the show.
Let's continue our veteran talk. What established Bruins do you think have more to give this year? I know we discussed Hampus Lindholm just now. We discussed Brad Marchand, but who else do you think sort of has more to give?
I mean, I think probably one guy that is going into a pretty critical year is probably Trent Frederick. And again, it's crazy to think of him as maybe an established player now. But I think you look at, the lack of a proven, top 6 player on the wing with DeBrusque leaving. And not to say that I think Frederick's going to slot right in there to be a top 6 player, but if you're looking for a guy that has the bandwidth and the ability to, maybe be a 25 goal scorer, like, I don't know if that's putting too high expectations on him, but a guy that has taken steps forward every single year, it feels like. And I think especially offensively, has gotten a lot more comfortable at that side of the game. We know how good he is, defensively. I think he's probably still slept on as a really steady defensive player, but his offensive game and kind of just the little things he does that I think really gets more out of his line mates is something that's been a trend for a while now. But I think he's a guy that wherever he is, whether he makes the team, if he ends up being a top 6 player or is kind of a main line driver on the third line, he's the guy the Bruins need to, again, take another huge, maybe not a huge step forward. I don't know if they're like, you need to score 30 goals, Trent Frederick. But if he continues to take those,
figure out what
forward,
you do.
Yes. if he can, have more to give, especially offensively, I think the Bruins will absolutely take that. And that would be a welcome addition to a team that, as you said, has a lot of middle 6 players, a lot of really, really good third line players. If one of these guys can take a step and be a guy that all of a sudden, like, this guy should be playing, 17, 18 minutes a night up front, you absolutely would take that.
Frederick's the answer. And you think about, he's going into his contract year.
Right.
It's a time where he can make a lot of money. If he has a 40 or 50 point season, let's just say, he is getting a lot more money than he would have before next off season, and rightfully so. So he is certainly one. I think, he's not established, but, and you mentioned him a little bit earlier when we were talking about Lindholm, but Andrew Peak, he's someone else. I think that there's more to give there. We saw a little glimpse of it. He was injured for some of the playoffs. So we didn't get to see a ton of it, but from what we saw, like a good third pairing, right shot, shutdown guy, that's him. And I think there's more to give of that. I think we want to see more of him doing that. And, is there any offensive upside? Again, I go back to what I said when he was acquired. Like, he was a second round pick in 2016. So like,
I think so. Yeah.
Again, for a guy to go in the second round, scouts must have thought he had some sort of offensive upside. Shut down, just shutdown guys don't often go that high in the draft. I know Carlo was a second round pick, but again, like, usually have a little bit of an offensive upside. And hey, Brandon Carlo, a little bit of an offensive upside every now and again.
Score some goals in the playoffs, right?
He does, exactly. The dad's strength. So I do think that Peak would be someone else. Morgan Geekie would be an answer that some others might give, and I get it. But I also think he sort of not overachieved last year, but I think he was someone that we wanted to see more out of last year, and he delivered on that in terms of playing in different places in the lineup and producing. So, can Morgan Geekie become a top 6 wing? If he can, then he's the answer to that question. But I think Frederick's a little more likely, just given he's internal. And he's been around here for quite a while, and just given his skill set. On that fourth line, though, who would you say is going to end up being the most important or impactful player on that fourth line?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good options there, and we don't even know what the final grouping is going to be because you look at...
We're a long way away from that.
Yeah, but you look at like Beecher, Kastelik, Jones, even like Brazeau, like one of these guys is going to be probably the odd man out there. I'll probably go with, I think Max Jones has a lot to give. I think especially offensively, again, not a guy that I think is going to put him in a spot and he's going to break through with 19 goals or anything like that, 35 points. But you look at, I think, his production in limited roles in the past, his physicality, his size, his speed. Another guy that was a first round pick that I think teams saw, especially Anaheim, that thought he had more to give there and had that blend of, scoring with size. I think he's kind of the tone setter you kind of want on that line, where I think he should be the guy that should, I think, drag the rest of the guys into the fight. And I think you've got 2 other guys that have more room to grow there, or 3 guys, right, with Brazeau, Beecher, and Kastelik. But I think you look at the guy whose, game is simple and it's something you want as kind of the identity of that fourth line. I think Jones is the guy that I think really has, probably the template to follow, and I think can kind of provide the most, at least out of the gate. But you can make the compelling case for any of those 4 guys, honestly.
Yeah, Jones is a good one. I think fans are going to love him. I say Kastelik. I think given his face-off winning abilities, he's a right shot, so you get that, right shot on the draw. His physicality, and I hate to fighting, like you get that end of it too, where like he's good with that stuff. I don't know if he's going to give you a lot offensively, but I do think, like, can he turn into a potential shutdown guy? Like, obviously that fourth line, the identity looks like it's going to be a speedy, physical, hard on the forecheck kind of line. But can they also go up against other teams' top guys? Can they go up against other teams' top D-men? Like, I think there's a lot there, and I think he can kind of help bring that. You saw glimpses of it in Ottawa. And I also think, like, if he ends up working out, the Ullmark trade looks better. Now, again, I'm not, I don't think they're, going to
go back in this rabbit hole.
Do this again. But I don't think, Montgomery's going to keep sending him out there, even if he stinks, just to be like, we gotta prove we won the Ullmark trade. But I do think that Kastelik has a lot to give. And I think him and Jones are 2 guys who are going to kind of give that fourth line identity. And I think that's why even now, like, we don't know what the fourth line is going to be. We don't know what the set fourth line is going to be. Riley Duran is someone, potentially could also make it out of camp as sort of a young gun. But with the acquisitions of Kastelik and Jones, we have a pretty good idea what the identity of that line is going to be. So it makes it easier for you and I to sit here and speculate because we know what kind of guy they're going to go for in that spot. So to me, like Kastelik and Jones make a lot of sense to be on that fourth line come training camp and come after training camp. So lots of interesting stuff. I'm excited. Training camp is less than a month away pretty much now, right? Like, so should be there soon again. Thankfully,
only a couple weeks till captain's practices too. Those usually start about a week or 2 weeks ahead of when training camp starts. So
yeah,
a couple of back at it tweets will be on the horizon, Evan. We're almost there.
We'll need it. We'll need it. I'm excited. This part of the summer, I'd probably say this every year, is weird. Like I love the summer. I really do. But this part of the summer is weird because it's like kind of over. Like I still have a trip left, which will be fun. It's a weekend thing and a Gunquit, Maine. You guys know I love Maine, love a Gunquit. But it's just the end, and I want fall to just begin. All right, let's dive into fall. Let's dive into all the fun stuff there. So just, I don't know.
Told you August. That's why I've had this ranked, I think, on this podcast of August is like a mid-tier. It's a mid-tier month. You get to this point of August, it's like the end of Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. You're just waiting for it to end. You're like, all right, this is going another 40 minutes. I'm like, the final act is over.
I've never seen Lord of the Rings, but I'll take your word for it.
It's like the Godfather. It's like the Godfather when you were with Diver, and he was the Godfather reference, right. And you were like a tugboat in the middle of the mist. You had no idea what he was talking about.
Like, yeah, of course. When you're in a conversation with someone,
tomatoes, yes.
Yeah, oh yeah, Mamma Mia, the Godfather.
Yes.
Like,
yes, that's exactly what happens.
But it wasn't the Rizzler and Big Justice. They were in the Godfather, right? The Costco guys.
Now you have me lost. Let me tell you something, Evan.
They were in the Godfather.
I feel better about myself that I don't know who the fuck the Rizzler is, as opposed to you not.
Well, that's
not
a damn shame. That's on you for not knowing who the Rizzler is. That's really sad, actually.
Okay.
I'd rather know the Rizzler than the Godfather.
Okay.
That's 25-year-old me talking.
Okay.
It's sad.
We'll clip that. We'll clip that and tweet this out a little bit later.
I will say, my friends and I, we had a golf tournament for charity last weekend, and we had a foursome. It was really fun. And do you know what brain rot is? It's like the Rizzler. It's like the stuff that like kids are saying on TikTok and stuff. And
can't say I do.
Well, anyways, it exists, and we would jokingly say it to each other like the entire time. And it's sad because like even though we say it as a joke, we probably know just as much as like the freaking kids do. Like it's not good. It's ruining my brain. So I am cooked. But yeah, that's the Rizzler and the Costco guys. Ty Anderson introduced me to the Costco guys. I didn't know who they were until he sent it to us one day. And then I started seeing them everywhere because they were all over my algorithm. So I blame Ty Anderson for that, who's older than me, by the way, and knew who they were. So yeah.
He knows what the pulse of the internet is, I guess. Maybe I'm behind. My TikTok's all like dog videos, and then it's like people like, like falling or something like that. It's like slapstick, like
kids getting hurt.
Yeah, people walking through like glass doors or something like that. That's like what mine's a mix of like mine's when you watch America's Funniest Home Videos and you just get a little older, so like the injuries are slightly more severe. Like, oh, like that's what maturing is, Evan.
It is. It is. Maybe one day. I have mine's all dogs too. I can't get enough of dogs. And then I love some injuries on there for sure. The Twitter algorithm is fucked. I mean, that is like
it's insane.
It's awful.
I am like aghast when I look at I scroll through my Twitter like for you. I'm like, I didn't ask for any of these. Like
no, like where did these come from?
Yes.
So it's. Yeah, Twitter, it's like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, so our brains are cooked. Maybe I should go watch The Godfather to
I'll read up on the Rizzler. I'll have there's probably a video compilation. I'll have that. I'll be listening to that while I'm stuck in traffic going to Gillette. So
yes, Rizzler's best moments. I think you should definitely look at that.
That's what I want to hear on Route 1 as I'm bumper to bumper.
That would be so much fun. Anyways, Connor, now that you're back, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston.com? I know you have a big feature coming on the Rizzler.
Yes, of course. Working on that. It's
oral history of the Rizzler's first 10 years of life.
Yeah, it's a lot of sources, a lot of really strenuous work there. So excited to finally drop that one pretty soon. But beyond that, getting ready for the start of the Bruins season. We finally reached the finish line, I think, of this dead time in the off season. So we'll have you covered every step of the way with training camp, roster projections, all that fun stuff. You can read all of my stuff over at boston.com and the Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky, presented by PrizePicks and GameTime. You Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.